Many of you probably have your own wireless networks in your own homes. The primary security threat for home Wi-Fi networks is unauthorized access, sometimes called piggybacking. If somebody accesses your wireless network without you knowing it, they can potentially sniff your wireless traffic while you're using your devices at home. Perhaps even worse, they could use your internet connection to commit cybercrimes, such as fraud or buying and selling drugs. Such activities could be traced back to your router. Attackers know this. Some of them even drive around neighborhoods looking for unsecured wireless connections. Sometimes when cybercriminals find good, accessible, unsecured connections, they will post them on online maps that direct a criminal community towards good places to access unsecure Wi-Fi. Knowing these potential threats, it's a good idea to keep your wireless network secure. In this lesson, we'll cover 6 network administration tips that can help you to keep your wireless network as secure as possible. Use a strong router password, enable wireless security encryption, enable router firewalls, disable SSID broadcast, filter MAC addresses, and turn off your router. Network administration tip number 1 is to use a strong router password. To access and to change the security settings on a router, a user will type in the router's IP address into a web browser, and this address will pull up the router's administration page. The settings on this administration page are usually password protected, so that not just anybody can change the security settings on your router. Most routers come from the factory with a default password, and many users never bother to change this password. You should make sure that you've changed your router password to a strong password that you'll be able to remember. Attackers often know the default administration passwords for various routers. If they have the administration password for your router, then attackers can potentially log into your router as an administrator and then change your security settings to their liking. For guidance on choosing a strong password, I recommend that you go back and watch Lesson 11, which is titled Choosing a Strong Password. Network administration tip number 2 is to enable wireless signal encryption. Most routers come with some kind of security option that will allow you to encrypt the wireless radio signals between your computer and your router. Make sure that this option is enabled on your router, and make sure that you're using the strongest encryption options that are available to you. The most secure encryption option currently available is called WPA2. This option won't be available on some older routers or maybe for some older computers, but if it is available, then you should use it. The next most secure encryption option is called WPA. It's a step down, but it's better than nothing. The least most secure encryption option is called WEP. Some older computers cannot read either WPA2 or WPA, and so for those computers, WEP will have to do. WEP is the weakest encryption option available, but it's still a little better than no encryption at all. Network administration tip number 3 is to enable router firewalls. As you may remember from other lessons, firewalls protect computers from receiving unauthorized and unrequested traffic through their internet connections. Your computer probably has a firewall, but your router probably also has a firewall. It's a good idea to keep your router's firewall turned on, even if you have another firewall running on your computer. There's no real downside to having multiple firewalls running at any given time, and running multiple firewalls has some advantages. Your router firewall might have strengths that cover the weaknesses of your computer's firewall. Network administration tip number 4 is to disable SSID broadcast. Every router has a name. A router's name is also called its Service Set Identifier, or SSID. The SSID is the name that appears on your computer's network management application when you search for available wireless networks. Routers come factory configured so that they broadcast the SSID for everybody to see. This configuration makes sense for public internet connections, such as the one that you would find in a cafe or at an airport. It makes less sense for private internet connections in your home. If you already know the SSID that you want to connect to, then your computer can find and connect to it without the router broadcasting the SSID out to the public. Network administrators can disable SSID broadcast on a router. With this broadcast disabled, it's more difficult for outside attackers to even see whether you have a Wi-Fi connection in your house or apartment. they will likely just pass over you if you aren't broadcasting your SSID. Network administration tip number 5 is to filter MAC addresses. Internet-ready computers connect to the internet through a network card that plugs into the computer's motherboard. Every network card has a unique address called a Media Access Control Address, or MAC address. You should note that the word Mac in this context doesn't have anything in particular to do with Mac computers associated with Apple technologies. This resemblance is just a coincidence. Every internet-ready computer, be it a Mac, a PC, or anything else, will be associated with a unique MAC address. Most routers can filter computers by their MAC addresses. Such a feature is a powerful security tool. If this feature is enabled on your router, then only computers with approved MAC addresses can access your Wi-Fi connection. You will be able to add and to remove MAC address permissions in your router's administrative settings. Network administration tip number 6 is to turn off your router. It's a good idea to turn off your router if you're not going to be using it for an extended period of time. Attackers can't attack a router that's turned off. As an added bonus, you'll save a few dollars on electricity every year if you turn off your router while you're asleep or while you're away from home. Okay, let's review. We've covered 6 network administration tips: using a strong router password, enabling wireless signal encryption, enabling router firewalls, disabling SSID broadcast, filtering MAC addresses, and turning off your router. That's all of the tips that I have for you for now. If you have a router, you should go play with it. See if you can adjust any of the settings that I've recommended here. If you have trouble, try searching the web for a user's manual or for a helpful forum that answers your questions. Once you figure out how to access your router's administrative settings, and once you familiarize yourself with the administration page, I imagine that you'll find that the tips in this lecture are pretty easy to put into practice.